So I've just watched a video on Facebook in which a doctor in the UK recommends deep breathing techniques to patients who are suffering lung infections. And three things have struck me about this video. The first is that the concept of deep breathing seems to be new to this doctor, which I find quite amazing when you consider that oxygen is the most fundamental thing to our health. The second is that although he correctly says that people need to get air into the bottom of the lungs, he then goes on to demonstrate a technique that really doesn't fill the lungs. And the third is that he only casually recommends this to people in general, whereas in fact everybody should practice deep breathing for their health. So our lungs have a certain capacity, and when they're full to capacity, that provides us with the air we need on a breath-to-breath basis. So there's no sense in having half full lungs. Full lungs is what your body needs. Now, if you breathe in such a way that only half fills your lungs, you might as well only have one lung. And I think you would agree that having one lung is not ideal. So how do we breathe to fill the lungs all the way to the bottom? Well, take a deep breath for a moment. Now, if you did this, then you're not filling the bottom of your lungs because you're tightening down here and you're forcing all of this to expand because this doesn't. Why does this need to expand? Well, beneath your lungs, you've got a muscle called the diaphragm. And when it's relaxed, it's curved, kind of like this. And that pushes air out of the lungs because it pushes upwards. When it tenses, it flattens out like that. And this causes a vacuum in the lungs, which allows you to draw air in. But when it flattens like that, it's going downwards and it's putting pressure on the visceral organs. And so they need to go somewhere. If you're holding your belly flat while trying to flatten the diaphragm, then the diaphragm cannot move very far. So when you breathe in, what you need to do is allow all of this to relax. If you watch how children breathe, small children, you see them always breathing from here. You won't see them breathing up here. Around the age of 7, 8, they start to copy how adults breathe, and they forget how to breathe naturally. So if you're not breathing properly, you're potentially doing this for years, or perhaps even your entire life if you're older, and this has knock-on health effects. One of the health effects is stress on the heart, because if the blood is only carrying half the oxygen that it should be carrying, the heart has to pump harder and faster to bring as much oxygen through the arteries as possible. So by breathing fully, all the way down to the bottom of your lungs, you'll load the blood with oxygen and the heart doesn't have to work as fast to get oxygen to your cells. If you're carrying a few extra kilos like me, you may be tempted to try and hold everything in as much as possible, but that's not good for relaxation and it's not good for your breathing. When you hold everything in like that, you don't allow the diaphragm to expand downwards because there's nowhere for it to expand to. So as you breathe in, you need to let this relax out. As the doctor recommended, we're going to hold the breath for 5 seconds, but we're also going to inhale for 5 seconds to give you a maximum time to allow the air to reach the bottom of your lungs. doctor also said that you should cough on the 6th breath, but if you cough from up here, you won't really drag up from the bottom of your lungs. So instead of coughing like this, try and cough like this. Of course, if you're near anybody else because of the current coronavirus situation, you need to do this. As the doctor mentioned, you may feel dizzy doing these exercises at first. Once you get used to doing them, that will go away. But at first you may choose to sit down while you're doing them, or at least if you're doing them standing up, have a chair or someplace to lie down nearby. I recommend you do these breathing exercises every morning and every evening until abdominal breathing becomes your natural, normal way of breathing.